Blessings, everyone. This is Chris Kendall from the rawadvantage.com, registered holistic nutritionist, raw food lifestyle coach, and raw chef. I have an exciting interview for you today. We're going to be talking with Desiree Manning, a 5-year raw vegan and a professional acrobat, actor, and performer. So let's get into it.
Baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw.
All right, Desi. So how you doing? It's great to have you on the channel.
Thank you, Chris. I feel so grateful to be here with you. Things are doing good. I'm in Langley. Langley, BC. It's a little rainy, but that's okay. I'm expected of it to be over here.
Yeah, the winters there. It's actually really similar to Sweden where I'm at. I lived in Vancouver a bunch, and it's just a little bit more cloudy, a little bit more rainy in the winter season, and then nice in the summer. And you get that trade-off, but you got to expect it. That is kind of par for the course, hey?
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah. So you're kind of used to it over in Sweden a little bit too, right? Like the weather's a little bit similar.
Absolutely. And I've spent multiple winters in Vancouver as well. That's actually where I went into raw food in the early 2000s and stuff. So it's kind of interesting actually starting right there. We have that shared thing. How did you get into raw food? And have you lived in Langley for a long time? Is that where you grew up?
Yes, I actually grew up here in Langley, and I got into raw foods from my brother. Actually, he's an ultra runner and athlete, and so he got into vegan, and then he came across Doug Graham 80-10-10 book.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
and so I came across it. Like, how could I not come across it? And
yeah.
I'm a performer, acrobat, and dancer, and it's my career to take care of myself and give myself everything that I need to perform as a dancer and acrobatic.
Yeah, that's strenuous, right? That's like both of those are really intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I got so many stories like as a performer and being raw.
Yeah.
But I definitely that's how I got into raw. I through my brother, and then reading 80-10-10. And after I read 80-10-10, I was like, how can I not do this?
Yeah. It makes just so much sense, right? Like it's just like such a great combination between like really great science, but also like common sense and just tying it together. So it's just like, of course, like this makes so much sense on every level.
I know. And I really like how he hits like every point so accurate. And even nutrition and athletic performance, that was really nice to read because to hit as an athlete as well.
Yeah.
But that's how I got into raw food. I started doing raw food in Langley.
Yeah.
But it took me a year and a half to transition into raw food because I was also traveling and working.
Yeah.
I was working on Disney Cruise Line performing.
Cool. Yeah.
So
that's
I've done. Yeah. So it was. I went vegan on the ship performing.
Yeah.
So I tried to go vegan, and then I came back home, learned about raw. And then when I went back to the ship, I was like, how am I supposed to, I learned all this great information about food. I'm like, how am I supposed to go raw vegan on a ship? Like food is limited.
Yeah.
Like they feed you the food, like, right? So it's just like, it was pretty hard because you're not supposed to bring food back to your cabin or your place. But I would kind of sneak it. I would kind of like
force such a bad kid. You're sneaking those fruits and vegetables to your room. And it's kind of funny. I know one other person who was a performer on a Disney cruise ship from my youth, but also I actually did go as a guest on a Disney cruise ship with my family as a raw foodist, and was the best experience. Like breakfast and lunch, I just would go to the buffets. And I mean, as a guest, it's a little different than as a worker, I'm sure. But I got to just go, and I even gave them my food and they blend it for me. But then at dinner, I was assigned a chef whose sister was a raw foodist. So he made me 2 to 3 course meals every single night because during the cruise, you'd go to a different restaurant every night. But he would follow me to each restaurant and make a 3-course raw vegan meal every single dinner. And it was really good.
No way.
Made a whole video on it, actually.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Wait, do you remember which ship that was? It was Disney, but do you remember which one it was?
I'd have to look it up. It's probably in the video, but it was, there was like Belle and Beauty and the Beast and like a whole bunch. And it was leaving from Florida from like, I can't remember if it was like Tampa or not Tampa.
Or Canaveral?
Possibly there. Like I know we were near Tampa and then we went from there. Or maybe it was near Fort Lauderdale, one or the other, but from Florida.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, because most of the Disney ships come out of Florida, and that's where I was mostly coming out was Port Canaveral.
Yeah.
Sorry, which year did you go on?
Oh gosh, I'd have to look at the video, but it would have been probably at least a decade ago, maybe longer. It's a
Hmm.
while. Yeah.
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 Oh wow,
But
so cool.
you were able to, or you had a hard time maintaining it on the ship, but you snuck some stuff into your room, and from that experience, what did you learn?
I made it work.
You made it
So
work.
I made it work. It was so funny. So I've done like 4 different contracts on Disney Cruise Line, and it's so
Yeah.
funny because like one I was meat eater, and then one I went vegan, and then the next one I was transitioning to raw,
Yeah.
and then so my last contract I was like I want to do raw on this ship, and I ended up doing raw on the ship completely and
Nice.
low fat too.
Yeah.
I got a lot of fruit from upstairs in the guest area, and I made friends with the chefs who would kind of sneak me some fruit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like everyone was supportive and like really helpful. And then also I had friends that in the show that were like, whoa, you're thriving, like you're doing such a great job, like you're doing the shows and you're working out.
Yeah.
And so I had friends like kind of join me on it.
Hey, what are
And
you
it
doing?
was,
Yeah, let's do this.
yeah, and I was like,
Yeah.
let's do this. And so it was nice to like help them and kind of do it together to support each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, I noticed a huge difference in my performance quality
Yeah.
because I had a pretty hard track with my shows. I had a lot of tumbling and just I was a dancer as well, so a lot of moving around. And so I just noticed that I recovered quickly. I could keep my like heat levels, like I don't get like over like
Overheated.
heated.
Yeah.
And that
Absolutely.
was important with like all the costumes on. And I could also tell that I was breathing better too, like more oxygen to the cells and stuff. So
Yeah.
I did notice that.
That's
But
huge.
yeah.
Lower fat specifically. Hey, that's awesome. And
Mhm.
and so, did you also find that, like, if you were a professional dancer before you went into raw food, how long were you a professional dancer before you got into raw food?
I've been professional since about 16 years old. So I
Oh,
started
wow.
working professional, maybe even like 15. I started working and getting jobs.
Yeah.
But I was training since I was 3 years old as a
Wow.
dancer. And
Yeah.
yeah, around 16, I started like working on shows in the film industry as well,
Yeah.
in Vancouver.
Wow. So yeah, so you have that contrast of what you were doing before and then going raw vegan and like you said, recovery and all that stuff. Did you also find just like flexibility and mobility and all those things improve as well?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and definitely, especially in the flexibility, I noticed, which felt really good as a dancer. I also noticed I felt lighter,
Mhm.
but but stronger. So I felt like I had
Yeah.
more power, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Like before, I felt really heavy.
Yeah.
So when I went to raw, it just felt all around lighter,
Yeah.
which was really beneficial for like jumping and then also
Yeah.
like climbing up on silks or trapeze.
Oh,
Beforehand,
trapeze. Man, you do all the fun stuff. Like when I'm out in Costa Rica, I sometimes do the flying trapeze and silks, and I love both. And like I have a little bit of gymnastics background and trampoline background, so and acting stuff. It's a little similarities, but not
yeah,
professional like you. But I noticed with skateboarding, which actually I'm technically pro skateboarder now too. Yeah, jumping and recovery and flexibility, all those things. Like, I mean, especially if you work on it. If you don't work on it, like anything, right? But if
right.
you're wanting to be high level, you got to put the time in.
Oh yes. Oh, you would love the gym that I train at here. Like it has like yeah, all the silks, the trapeze. We also have trampoline as well and wall tramp. So
Oh yeah,
like wall tramp, we jump off and then come back in. So
yeah,
I've trained
that's
on
so
that as
fun.
well.
Oh,
You would love it. Like
I love that stuff.
if you're in the area, like the gym is so friendly. You can literally just like come by and like just like train and like try everything. Like yeah, you would really like it.
I'm going to take you up on that because I intend to be in Vancouver sometime. It might not be soon, it might be the next like handful of years, but I will try and take you up on that. That'd be really fun. Meet up and have some food and have some fun in the gym.
Yes. Oh, 100%. I would love that. Yes.
So I'm curious, like you said, you've been doing this about 5 years and you saw some improvements. Over the last 5 years, have those improvements been steady or have you ever had some setbacks? And if you had setbacks, did you find ways to correct those? And, how have you seen things proceed over the 5-year period?
Yeah, really good question. got into the I got into the fasting and the healing side
Yeah.
of raw vegan. I had like fungus in my nail,
Yeah.
like over like fungus and stuff, and it really bugged me. And I could feel it in my obviously it's coming from the inside, so I felt it in my stomach as well.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason why I got into fasting. I was just trying to kind of get rid of it and clean myself and get any rid of parasites that maybe I had eating meat and stuff. I think I got into it a little bit too much. Maybe I was a little bit obsessed with it.
It can happen.
Yeah, definitely happened. And so I lost a lot of weight, like a lot of weight.
Bones showing kind of weight.
Yes, like
Yeah.
I got down, like I'm with the muscle and the strength I've built, I'm around 145 right now. And I went down to like 110 or 108 almost.
Yeah. How tall are you?
I'm 5'6".
Okay. Yeah. So you would have been quite light. Yeah. Been definitely the low scale of the BMI, like really low scale.
Yeah, I might have been 104 actually. But yeah, it was pretty low. And I'm glad that I went through that experience.
Yeah.
And it was around 2020 that there was things that obviously things shut down. So I was allowed to maybe not be strong and allow myself to kind of
A little more isolated anyway. It was like a break for a lot of people, right?
Yeah. Like it was kind of nice because maybe I needed it mentally too to like recover from maybe just like everything in life that I've been through. It was the first time in 2020 where I was just like things kind of stopped and I was like allowed to process everything, maybe grieve some things that I had to go through.
Yeah.
And so I lost a lot of muscle. And when I started to go back to dance, it was pretty heartbreaking because I was known to being strong, and to come back feeling pretty withered and not strong was really heartbreaking. Like I didn't feel it was so hard. So like ever since like mid 2020, I've been trying to gain strength and come back. And obviously like it's been slow over time because if I've been eating like mono meals and pretty clean eating, like I can't just jump right into things that I'm eating now.
Yeah.
Like so it was a process to kind of get back into that.
Yeah.
And it's been a process, but I am so grateful for where I'm at now. Like I look back and like, oh my goodness, like I couldn't do a jeté before, and like now I'm like jumping and I'm tumbling again and I'm doing everything that I used to be able to do, and I'm so grateful. And it's almost coming back stronger. So I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And I can totally resonate with you too, because I in my skateboarding, and I don't want to go too much into my stuff, but I did get to a point too when I first got into raw food. I was eating really simple and under eating calories, and I got to a really low body weight, and joints started hurting, and I just wasn't feeling as good. As really simple, similar kind of thing, and just wasn't performing in the way I wanted to. And it took me a while of learning to eat sufficient calories and enough variety, and getting everything I need to start to slowly build up and not have the joint pain and anything like that. And when you're used to being pretty good at something, then all of a sudden, like you're trying to do everything you can to be the best at it, and then that kind of falls away. Like it can make everything kind of like, what the hell? Like where am I? Who am I? Is this right? Am I believing the right thing? And it can be really scary and just challenging mentally, emotionally, physically, right?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So challenging. It's so weird to be known as that and then not have those skills to do that. Yeah. It's pretty heartbreaking. But then once I've coming over that hurdle, coming back just feels so much stronger. And then you kind of appreciate where you're at. And it's almost like the comeback is stronger, right? Like as that athletes say, right? And like as an athlete, like it's always like this. It's not always at your peak, right? So it's good to recognize that too.
So I'm in the same place actually too, because of the motorcycle accident, 5 years, and then being completely crushed, and then slow and steady building. And now I feel like I'm better than I was before the motorcycle accident. And it sounds like you're in the exact same place. So do you now feel like, you are at a place where you're doing the same stuff, you're feeling as good, better in some ways, maybe different in other ways than compared to before the intensive kind of detox and losing a lot of weight and stuff like that?
Yes, like I feel like um there's still things that I'm trying to aim for strength wise. Like I'm still always trying to move forward, and I think that's always going to be like that, the athlete brain.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And but I definitely feel like um before where I was at, like I'm definitely back to where I was at.
Yeah.
So, and I've noticed that I just had to change my mindset. Like, it's funny because like there's different raw, right? Like there's so much, like you can intermittent fast, you can gain weight, you can, there's so many different things you can do with it. And
Yeah.
I think going from fasting to gaining weight and muscle, I've had to change my mindset, and I'll
Yeah.
know that it's good to eat a lot. It's good to incorporate, fats and stuff. And I've
A
noticed
little bit
that,
more open, right? A little bit more abundant, a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more going into foods you're drawn to rather than just a specific list, maybe.
yes, yeah, I've kind of let the ego go. Like I'm eating raw, but I'm kind of, yeah, a little bit more abundance and listening to myself. And I've noticed, especially with the fat as well, that it has noted I've been great with my nervous system. So like after lifting at nighttime, like having obviously some good fat with notice, my nervous system it was so helpful.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially with lifting too. So I also like lift as well with weights and stuff and with diagrams. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah. Let's go into
yeah,
that. That's actually really cool. So you've been working with Doug for a few years now?
one
One
full
year?
year. It's
One
been
full
one full
year.
year.
Yeah. And he's specifically been, I mean, helping out with powerlifting, weightlifting, and just getting more strength and active recovery from the past. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I wanted to gain strength
Mhm.
quicker. So I was like, who better than Doug, like a like raw
Yeah.
vegan strength coach? And so I talked to him, and it seemed like such a great fit. And
Mhm.
so we've been working towards gaining strength for my dancing and my acrobats. And the strengthening has been specifically for powerlifting, and I've noticed the difference. So yeah, the bench, the squat, and the deadlift. I've
Yeah.
been
Yeah. The big three. I
right.
I work
Yeah.
out too, and I mean I do those. Maybe I have like a big eight, but those are like the three like compound heavy lifts. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's
Hmm.
awesome. So before you got into that with him, had you been doing that before? Like how much have you been lifting? Do you have much experience with lifting before working with Doug?
Yeah, like I worked with a friend on the ship with lifting, but it was more, I would say, kind of bodybuilding, a little bit more
Yeah,
hypertrophy, but
yeah,
I noticed good strength in that as well.
yeah,
And I've always been kind of into some type of lifting, like the pulls and the pushes and the squats and stuff. But with Doug, this was like the first year where I'm like really focusing heavily on just those three
yeah,
skills. We do
yeah,
other things too.
yeah,
Um, but the reason why we focus on those three, especially too, as well, because I had like a friendly powerlifting competition recently, and I was just like, oh, what's it going to be like? Oh, let's try it.
yeah,
And so we had it here in our house because we have a gym. And
yeah,
so my brother lifts as well. And we had people over, and it was fun to experience the powerlifting competition. I also watched the video that you did with you went to Doug's qualification last year or
yes, yeah,
something.
yeah. That
I
was
watched
awesome,
that
man.
video.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So it was fun to see Doug lift in that video too, and see that you were there as well.
yeah.
Um,
He knows his
yeah.
stuff. I mean, I've learned so much from him. He was my main inspiration. I went raw, the next day after meeting him, 100% raw after meeting him like almost 20 years ago now, and been blessed to hang out with him at festivals and at his house and even at his friend's house where he power lifts and whether
I've
it's
heard.
raw food or fitness or it's just amazing the amount of information and clarity he can bring really quickly, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So with the year you've been working with him, you said it's been pretty steady progress. What would you say is some of the main key things that you've implemented through working with him that have made a difference in your strength training?
I would notice like technique wise, like we've really worked on technique, and but also just like little details that I didn't think that would benefit in my sport. Like I never thought that bench would help in my dance. Like I wasn't much of a chest or like a bench person, but then I noticed like I'm rolling on the ground and I'm pushing off the
pushing
ground.
yourself up and pulling yourself and
Yeah, so there's certain things that I just noticed over time where I'm like, oh my goodness, like my pushing is so much better and my jumps are so much better. And just even just small details, like I didn't know like if I stop squatting and if I go back to squat, my legs are going to be super sore, like kind of like keep it up consistently, right? He's really helped me like consistently. And I've enjoyed seeing him like 3 times a week. Like it's just I learn something every time with him.
Oh,
it's
sure.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Every interaction. He's such a fun person to be around and to learn from, right? Like he says his dad was like, the most well-read person. I mean, I know he's super well-read and he has endless stories about any subject, right? That seem to meander sometimes and then all of a sudden reach such a clear point that the story just cements it in your head, right? So it's so fun.
Oh yeah, I noticed that in Doug too. I know, yeah, like I love his stories. He makes things fun too. Like we do fun things too, like even the ball work as well. You must have done the ball work as well.
I've done ball work and we've done trampoline work where we didn't even jump on the trampoline. He finds different ways of using everything to make it fun and different and challenge you in different ways every time, right? But yeah, I was just in Spain and he was doing a lot of ball work with the people there and lots of fun.
Yeah. And like another thing that I've noticed with Doug is I also teach dance as well. So I teach dance and at the gym in the studio that I train at. And so I've noticed what I can give to the students from learning from Doug. So I'm learning how to also be, a better teacher for my students on how to help them get to their level that they need. And I feel so grateful. And I can tell in the students that I teach that they love it. And so I pass that along.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think the greatest thing we can do, right, is soak up what we can and continue to pass it out. And have your students noticed anything about you and question about your diet, like whether it's your students or other people you work with? Has anyone kind of perked up or given you a hard time, or what are some fun kind of stories around that?
I try to like influence them like in a fun way. Like I'm like, eat your fruit. And I try to and they're like, oh, you really like your fruit. And I'm like, they know that I eat this way. And I try to lead by example and not like push anything. And if they have questions, I try to let them pick my brain and stuff. Sometimes I have teenagers, so they don't really seem that interested. My favorite way is I like just to lead by example, and if they have things that they'll come to me. And sometimes I try to like get fruit in their brain. I'm like, hey, what's your favorite fruit? I try to just bring up the topic and stuff, and in that way.
Bring some stinky durian in there for them to try out.
Yeah, some of them know what durian is, and I'm like, I'm pretty surprised.
Yeah.
And I do have to say that is one fruit that just really helps with gains. Have you had like durian with like weightlifting and like noticed like?
Not consistently enough to notice, but I haven't really personally found, my diet has been fairly consistent, like the vast bulk of my calories from fruit, but then I eat a substantial amount of greens and veggies and a moderate amount of nuts and seeds. And I also include mushrooms and different stuff like that. And I occasionally do lentil sprouts and all that kind of fun stuff, especially more the last year. But I've been pretty consistent with some form of training, for 10 years, whether it's like intensive calisthenics or weightlifting more the last 5 years. But all of this to say is I personally haven't noticed much difference in results depending upon little shifts in my diet. But more so as long as I'm eating enough calories and really pushing my workouts, then I notice results consistently, but that's an interesting question and something I was actually curious about, through working with Doug and doing this kind of stuff. Have you guys focused in on any, small changes nutritionally, whether with Doug or personally yourself, that you found have made a difference in your gains? And I guess you kind of answered that a bit, but let's go more into it.
Yeah, I It's funny. We mostly talk about lifting, and I t- I do have the occasional like nutritional or food question. He knows that I'm like raw, and so he kind of like lets me do my thing.
Yeah.
But like I talked to him about fat and stuff because like the lifts were just so heavy, and I was just like, I need fat, and he's like, just allow yourself to have fat. Like he was just like every day, like obviously at nighttime, right? I enjoy having the fat, not too late, but at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I've really noticed that has helped me with my gains, like just allowing myself to eat in abundance and have the fat, and just especially with my nervous system, it was
Calms it
just
right down, right? So it's definitely not only more calorically dense, but requires a little bit more nervous energy, and also is good for the connections between the nerves as well. It's like integral, especially the omega-3s. But
Mhm.
durian, my God, it is a power food. I mean, it's high calorie, it's high protein, it's delicious. And
Mhm.
have you found that with the lifting, you're eating a lot more volume and or calories as well?
Yeah. And yeah, especially I'm having like 3 meals
Yeah,
more. Like I used to have 2 meals, and now I was maybe even having 4 meals.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like I would have like I would have my citrus just to get hydrated, and then even before working out or after, I would have bananas and dates. So definitely something more dense.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would have a second banana meal, and then at nighttime I would have like a salad with avocado or nuts and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a lot of food.
Yeah.
And I could tell sometimes when it felt like it was too much food, I felt like I needed to rest. Like
Yeah.
when I was tired of eating, I was like, okay, I think I'm just tired. I'm trying to find the balance of knowing when to eat. Sorry, when to rest and sleep. Because sometimes, like, to stay awake or to keep going, you keep eating, right? But it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you actually need to sleep,
Yeah.
and you feel better, and you're gonna like we talked about like absorbing our nutrients in food.
Yeah.
When I'm well rested and slept well, then I can tell that I'm going to want to the food's going to be better and recover better.
Absolutely.
That's where I'm trying to find the balance of is making sure I get enough sleep and rest, and then allowing the calories to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are so key. Like I know Doug often says that most people overtrain, and that you can definitely diminish your returns if you overtrain and under recover. I mean, obviously the recovery is such an important part.
Mm.
But so when you mentioned before too about fat, and so was there a period of time where you like had almost no fat? And when you're saying like have more fat, like are you saying like 15, 20, 30%, 40%, like are you eating a lot of fat now, or what are you doing now that is feeling a little bit more balanced for you and working with the gains?
I would say, like to like sometimes I would say right now I'm having like maybe like 15% fat, to be honest. Like
Yeah,
I don't really
that's usually
measure.
where I am actually. I'm pretty consistently between 7 and 15%. Like summer maybe 7 to 10, and then the winter usually like 7 to 15.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm definitely having around that, and I'm having it every day. And I would say I go into periods where I don't have fat, maybe for like a week, just to trim down just a little bit. And I notice once I go a week without overt fats, that I definitely trim down. And that's something that I'm grateful for with my body, is like I know how to easily just trim down just a little bit.
Yeah, that's a,
Um,
that's a big plus, right? Like this lifestyle makes it so easy to body sculpt and really like decide how you want to be pretty quickly.
Yeah. And it happens so quickly too. Like sometimes I'm worried, like I gain weight and I look at myself, I'm like, oh, I'm a little bit heavier than I want to be. And then just like a few days, maybe a week of the no overt fats, even like 4 or 5 days, I notice a huge improvement. I'm like, oh my goodness, like
Yeah.
I felt like I didn't need to do that much, and it happened pretty quickly. So that's something I'm grateful for with that, right? It's
Oh, for
easy.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got the secret ticket, and I mean, whether especially like when you're in a performance, kind of arena, where you're like you need to be the top of your game, or if you're in a performance in terms of visual, like
Hmm.
it's crazy. Like so many people could benefit so much from this because they don't need to like starve themselves or they don't need to like, smoke and take cocaine to try and like lose weight and stuff, and like and be less
Mhm.
healthy and have crazy cravings and all that kind of stuff, So it's just
Mhm.
crazy how effective it is and how so many people don't really notice it or don't recognize it yet.
And it's such a healthy way to do it and like to sustain yourself too, right? Like it's so helpful. There was a point before like the powerlifting competition, like I had a week before and Doug was like, we were resting. So we usually rest the week before the competition. And so I was resting. He told me that he's like, eat as much as you care for. Obviously, don't feel like you have to overstuff it, but feel like you can eat what you want or don't feel like you have to hold back. And I might have taken that to heart a little too much.
Eating
I
durian
actually
every day.
I actually had durian before the competition and
Yeah.
it helped. It
Yeah.
really did help. But I had some fat like I had actually had fat like midday and then at nighttime. So I was definitely probably maybe at like 25% fat. And I I know I know. It
I
was
won't tell
cool.
Doug. Hopefully he doesn't. Doug, we're sorry. No, kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And because I like to experience things for myself and being like, you
Absolutely.
know what, I haven't done this in so long. What happens if I have like some in the middle of the day and at nighttime? I definitely noticed I gained weight quicker.
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely noticed some good gains in my lifting too. So when I did the competition, I lifted really well and heavy. So it
Nice.
did help. It did help, but I definitely also felt a little bit chubby.
Well, the funny thing is, you see a lot of powerlifters, and they are a little bit chubby. I mean, most people in that sport, that is something that is pretty normal, right? Like, at least, I mean, maybe you have a different perspective of it, but what I've seen is typically they seem just a little bit of a layer, and they don't
Mm.
look like bodybuilders, like they don't look like giant muscles and like super trim and ultra cut. I mean, sure, some do, but the average does seem to be that they're doing less lifts, but they're doing heavier lifts, and
Mm.
their physique is just a little bit different. It's what do you think about that?
I agree. Like I've seen power lifters, and I'm like, I didn't expect them to lift so heavy. Sometimes I'm like, oh, they'll probably not lift that heavy, and they go for it, and I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that because they seem so like sometimes they look average too,
Yeah,
and maybe not like trimmed or like cut.
yeah,
But then they can go and lift like I don't know, like 400-pound deadlift or squat or something. I'm like, oh
yeah,
my goodness, I was like, I did not expect that. So
yeah.
I've
It's
noticed that.
slow and steady progress, right? So, do you train like I know you said you train at home, but you also train with other people at times, or is it mostly kind of solo or with your brother?
We have a good setup here, so I train with Doug actually. So the only time I lift is with Doug, 3 times a week, kind of average.
Yeah.
Sometimes I go to the gym, but mostly my training is with other people at the circus gym. So on silks and trapeze, there's usually other people in the gym, and we kind of train together that way.
Yeah.
And same with dance. Like I go to dance classes with some friends and stuff with that.
And you mentioned when you're on the cruise, people are saying like, wow, like, you're working out and you're doing the work. Do you find similar things just in general with people that you're performing with in like off of the cruise? Do people ask what you're doing or notice any differences, or do you just visually kind of see differences in how you're performing and recovering compared to others?
Yeah, especially on because I work in the film industry here as well. So I get hired as like a dancer for on TV shows and movies. And so when I work on film work, they obviously provide food for you, right?
Yeah.
Crafty and
Oh yeah.
meals. And so it's very like quite what's the word? Lavish or
Laughing.
like
Oh, it's lavish. Oh, it's good then.
yeah, like or like
Oh,
it's
good.
it's good food, but it's very like heavy food, right? You might have like it's fancy, right? It's fancy
Yeah.
food. And
Yeah.
so but it's also very heavy too. And so I notice when I bring my own food to set and I eat my own food when other people are eating, the meal that's provided when we go back to set to film, everyone's kind of a little bit more heavy and sluggish.
Yeah.
And they notice it too. And then they kind of see me and I'm like, I'm feeling fine and stuff. And yeah, yeah. I'm like,
You're flying across the set, bird
yeah.
on your shoulder, like,
Yeah. And I like sometimes when you have multiple days on set with the same people start to bring their own food. And they're like, I saw Desi kind of bring her own food. So they start to bring their own food. And then they ask me like, oh, like, what do you do? How, like, you know, and they kind of even ask me about, what I eat and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful to inspire people to, you know, bring their own food if something's not feeling good for them. Yeah. And so that happens a lot with on set.
That's cool. That's cool. So I'm also curious, when you mentioned kind of like eating a little bit more fat and then sometimes not having fat, stuff like that, is this like an intellectual thing where you're like, oh, I need this, or is this like a body initiated thing where you're just genuinely following what you're kind of desiring from your experience with raw food?
Mm-hmm. At first, I thought it was maybe holding me back, that I wasn't getting enough fat or something. And I started to eat more fat, more of my mind being like, to gain weight, you got to eat fat and stuff. And then just even like a few months ago, I was like, you know what, I'm going to more listen to my body and not my mind. So listen kind of more my heart and my mind of what I need. And I noticed that helped a lot because I kind of took it to heart with the fat and the overeating and stuff. And it feels better to kind of feel what I need rather than think. Like it was such a big ego thing. Like I was like, to gain the muscle and the weight, you just got to eat a lot. And then I would kind of get big, and then I'd be like, yo, you need to trim down. So then I would try to trim down, and it was just too much back and forth. And I was like, you know what? Let's just listen and take our time and see what you actually need. And especially when things get stressed and busy, right? It's just hard to not listen. You like got to take a breath and be like, okay, what do you actually need? Drink some water first, and then let's decide what you actually need to eat. So I try to listen more intentionally.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I can totally identify with that as well. I used to be a little bit more intellectual, and when I let go of the intellect, and I mean, obviously it's a tool, right? So like learning and knowing what you need and all that stuff is really important. But at some point I realized, okay, well, I'm eating the healthiest diet in the world. Let's just focus on the ones that I love the most and no restriction. And I felt like another catapult in my results, you know, when I let go of like the mental construct and thinking I need this for that, I need that for that, and allowed my body to dictate. You know, I definitely hold the belief that the body is way more intelligent than any human, you know, and if we're intuitive and we have a background in raw food already, so our body already recognizes it, you know, the first month or first year on raw food, it might be a little different, but when you're a few years in and you've been consistent with a raw food diet, singles get pretty clear, you know, like gets pretty, like you can be walking down a produce aisle and be like, that's it. That's what I want. Have you had the same kind of experience?
Yeah, like more like with the intuition and like knowing as a raw foodist. Yeah, I think and that's something that I want to like keep continuing doing is like listening more intentionally with my heart. And because I do want to like I want to keep doing this down the road too, and like knowing that you've done like raw food for so long, that's something that like I want to keep doing. Like I want to make this sustainable and not feel like it's a mind like I gotta like be so strict on it. And it's nice to kind of relax into it.
Absolutely. So have you found, you know, like you said, adding a little bit of fat to the diet, maybe a couple other shifts, has your diet changed a lot in the last like, you know, year with Doug, or has it been pretty consistent the last year?
Just the last few months, I would say maybe 3 months, I've just been curious. Like, it's so weird. Like, I never thought I would get to this point of like trying different things, but it's at that point where I'm just curious, like what would happen. And like, so I actually ate out at a raw restaurant for the first time in like, 5 years, like, or maybe 4 years. Like I went to a raw restaurant and it was nice to try something that maybe I wouldn't have usually. Obviously it was a little bit more higher fat and probably had salt in it too. And, it was great. And I felt great.
Did you fast for a week afterwards and tithe a little bit? I'm
I,
I'm just joking.
yeah, I thought so. I thought so. Yeah, no, no, I just I loved it. It was just so great to have. And ever since that restaurant, I was just kind of like trying different things. I think yeah, some seaweed to have
Yeah,
some iodine and
yeah,
um get some different minerals through seaweed, like Irish moss and nori and stuff. But also, yeah, I don't have salt, but like every once in a while, I would have maybe just relax to have a little bit of sea, like Himalayan salt. But that's really new. Like that's so funny. I never thought I would kind of have that, but like just like every once in a while, maybe some black pepper as well.
yeah.
But I think I've recently tried like apple cider, but I don't really feel like I need it. Like I tried it in a sauce and I was like, you know what? I don't really like it that much, so I'm okay without it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, oh, sprouting. I love that you started sprouting. Like I saw your stuff on sprouting, so I started sprouting lentils and quinoa even, and I
They're
really
fun,
like
right?
it.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
fun. They're really satiating and such a different texture, and they're so cheap too. And like, I
Mhm.
just, I think it's so valuable and so fun to have flexibility and to try new things out with an open heart and like just, like just feeling good about trying and experimenting and seeing things. And it's so
Mhm.
funny because certain things, like you mentioned, whether it's the salt or um, there's one other thing you mentioned there where some people make them so black and white, like the devil or an angel, and it's like in the bigger picture, small amounts of these things are fairly inconsequential, compared to the big things we're talking about, like eating lots of fruits and vegetables and like working out and getting sleep, and stuff like that. And like being able to experience the little shifts we feel when we have those things, brings inner wisdom rather than just knowledge we're reading or somebody saying black and white this, black and white that. You can actually feel it, right?
Oh yeah, I like 100% agree on that because like I like to experience things for myself.
Yeah.
And I also like collecting herbs and stuff. Like I like foraging and collecting herbs and because I've also studied under Dr. Morris with
Yeah.
like herbals and stuff. And so I like to experience it for myself. I'm like, hey, does this actually heal some parts of my body? And so that's why I was curious on like different foods and stuff. I'm like, what if I experience this for myself? Like after I've cleaned myself out, like eating. So I was like, what happens if I try it? Like I'm just curious, like it's like a
Absolutely.
little bit,
Yeah.
and it's just so much fun to experience it for myself rather than just reading it black and white like this is what it is, right? So I've been grateful to like have that ego let go
Yeah.
and try it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of nice. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've tried recently that's a little bit different. um I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I've had the exact same experience too, because like my first 5 years raw, I was really strict natural hygiene, like no garlic, no onions, no peppers, no spices, very little fat, almost all whole foods. And it felt great. It felt amazing. But then I desired some changes and I wanted to try and make foods that mimicked old foods and blah, blah, blah. So I branched out and tried a bunch of different things, sometimes a little higher fat, sometimes lower, sometimes spices. But
Mhm.
you get such clear signals and you start to find things that either they might, like, some things I eat, there's a slight compromise but I enjoy them so much that it's worth it, and other things I just feel even better having, and I think it's just so important too to recognize like this is a journey of one, like you're doing your journey and it's up to you to decide exactly how you want to do it. It's like it's not like we're
Yeah.
following a rule book. It's just tools for optimal health, and there's some things that make a big difference and there's some things that make a little difference, and it's all up to us to decide what we do, right? And
Yeah.
no one has all the keys, like I think Doug has the absolute best, and 80-10-10 is amazing, but I allow some flexibility because I do some of the same things, like I enjoy seaweed, and, like you mentioned, I enjoy sprouting occasionally. I've had a decade without it sometimes, and sometimes I enjoy it, but
Mhm.
it's just that old adage, right? Like information can bring knowledge, but knowledge applied becomes wisdom. So it's just through applying and experimenting, and sometimes experimenting and then going away and then coming back to it, you can get even more clarity, right?
Yeah, and I feel like that's like when the best knowledge comes is like then like when you know it for yourself and you experience it for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I completely 100% agree. It's just nice to experience it for yourself. And yeah, it's just so funny to me. It's so funny. Like I've been so black and white, and it's just so funny to get to this point where I'm like yeah, just having different like yeah, spices and some sprouts and some vegetables too. And I've also noticed that like it's helped my strengthen my body and stuff as well. Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what would you say like an average day is like for you? You mentioned that, when you're working out, you're sometimes eating 4 meals a day, but like what exactly does that look like on an average day right now?
Okay. So I got a silks show coming up, so I got lots of training with the silks. So also my schedule's very sporadic as like a performer. Like you don't know when the next audition's gonna be, you don't know when something's gonna pop up. You got like work on set and stuff. But usually right now I wake up and I have some citrus, like orange juice. I'm
Good.
not good. I'm not good with measurements. To be honest, I actually don't really measure my food.
No, no.
I probably should. I'm curious. I'm curious to what I actually do, but I would say maybe like a liter, something like that of orange juice. Um, and then if I'm feeling like I need to have just a little bit more density, I would have some bananas and dates. I would maybe go weight train with Doug. So I
How
got
many
some
bananas and dates just for, for qualifying that question?
before workout.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I don't want to feel like I have too much in my stomach. So I would say maybe like it could be up to 3, 4 bananas with maybe like 5, 8 dates.
Yeah. So like a
But
nice cup, like a decent cup, not like a giant like liter and a half or something. It's more like a half a liter kind of thing, or maybe closer to 3/4 or something like that.
yeah, yeah, just something to have something in my stomach.
Mhm.
I find that I like to have something in my stomach when I lift because it's just it's very helpful. I can't lift on an empty stomach. I feel like I won't be able to push myself. I would be thinking about my stomach and not about my actual lifting. Usually I would go lift with Doug, and then afterwards I would have more bananas and dates. So more probably,
A bigger volume than before.
yeah, probably like 10, maybe 12 bananas with 8 dates. Sometimes I add carrot powder in there. Sometimes maybe I also I've had barley grass juice powder before, so sometimes I add that too as well in there. And then I would go to the circus gym. I would stretch and I would run my silk act or my trapeze act, and I would still have some type of food on hand. So maybe more bananas or grapes, whatever fruits in season. I actually been eating persimmons, so
Oh, it's so good.
so good, aren't they?
Yeah, they're so good.
Yeah. So I would bring something to the gym. And yet again, I would um, make sure that I would have just a little bit to kind of keep food in the stomach. If I usually sometimes if the banana filled me up, I wouldn't have to eat, and I would train. I would just go train without eating. But I always like to have something just in case.
Yeah.
And then even after training on silks and trapeze and whatever, I would have just a little bit more fruit. So yet again, bananas again, maybe not as big as the meal before, but some bananas again. And then I would go home. I would, do things that I need to do. I also practice singing, so sometimes I need to practice singing or go over my lines for acting class, so because I do class as well. And then I have dinner, and usually dinner would be maybe just a little bit of citrus, like grapefruit or orange juice again, and then a big salad. So salad with some like a cup of like a I like hemp seeds lately, so hemp seeds, garlic, lemon juice, kind of like I like with the salad dressing.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. Classic.
if I want to put sprouts on it too, I put sprouts on it too. It sounds like a lot of food,
But it sounds
but
like
like
you train a lot too. I mean, and
it's
the more you
mhm.
train, the more you need to eat. Otherwise you're going to disappear or not perform well.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes like I have even sometimes throughout my day I have like a rehearsal on my first half of my day, and then I have to go teach at nighttime. So I teach dance. So it's like a full 10-hour day. And so I have to really maintain, or even like a 12-hour day. So I really have to maintain myself. And
Yeah. Shit.
yeah,
So how many days a week do you train? And I mean, it sounds though that you're kind of doing multiple types of training. So how many times a week do you dance? How many times a week do you weight lift? And how many times a week do you do something else that is pretty vigorous?
So I usually try to see Doug 3 times a
Yeah.
week with lifting. So
Yeah.
usually working on a bench and squat and a deadlift, 3 times a week. Usually sometimes it averages to two times a week because there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
With circus, same thing. I try to do 3 times a week with circus. So usually it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And usually it's before or after my lifting with Doug. I usually kind of like, because it gets everything engaged and everything's strong. And then I go to climb and everything's really engaged. And then usually I also teach dance, right? So when I teach dance, I try to do it myself as a leader. And so usually that's also 3 times a week. It's crazy. My schedule is crazy.
36, so 9 times a week. So every single, I mean, do you have any complete days off where you don't do anything? Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, Sundays I have off. And actually, yeah, Sundays and sometimes Saturdays.
Okay. But it sounds like generally speaking, you're doing something every day and fairly strenuous. So it sounds like, because I was going to ask, like, do you find that on your off days you eat less food, less calories, or do you find that you're busy enough that those days are actually catch-up days for calories, if you get what I'm saying, that you're needing to stay pretty consistent to maintain your calories and your strength.
Yeah, I usually still eat quite a bit on those days off.
Yeah.
And because I can tell that my body is just like recovering and I still need those calories.
Yeah. Yeah. No, when you're that busy, like I can totally understand that because I've had times where like I've been so damn busy with skateboarding and working out or, like rehab and stuff like that, that even on the days off, I was eating like 4,000 calories because my body just absolutely needed it. And it's like, and then there's other times where I'm just like mediocrely where, I'm not as active every single day. So I might have an off day where I end up eating like 2,000 calories or even less because my body isn't desiring it because I'm not like continually at a elevated caloric need, right? But when you're consistent like you are, your body turns into a calorie consuming machine, right?
Yeah. And then sometimes like I used to think when I had the days off where I'm like, oh, I'm not exercising, so you don't need to eat as much. And it's like, no, like gotta keep eating. And so yeah, there's times where like I have like weeks off, like even after like the powerlifting competition, like I allowed myself to have like a week off and to especially recover from that. So I'm definitely trying to be smart on recovery and days off. And it's nice. I appreciate sometimes having those weeks or few days to unwind to allow my body to rest as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, the recovery is just as important as the working out, right? You can't have one without the other.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, this has been awesome talking, and I want to have two kind of closing out things. One, I just want to ask you, is there anything specific that you really feel like, you wish you knew in the first couple of years of raw food that someone maybe coming here could really benefit from your experience and what you've learned with what you've done and also learning from others like Doug? Is there anything big like that you'd like to leave people with?
Be careful with the lemon on your teeth.
Yeah.
I was just a huge fan of lemon and I'd have it twice a day and it definitely eroded my teeth and it just kind of broke down my enamel and it didn't feel that good. And
Were you doing lemon water or are you like sucking lemons or what were you doing?
I like lemon water and then I also like to put lemon on like zoodles. So I had like a lot of lemon zoodles and just that. And then sometimes just lemon on salad. And it was just like twice or 3 times a day I would have lemon. And I think lemon is great and stuff. And sometimes I was having unripe fruit as well. So it kind of didn't really help my teeth. So sometimes I would have unripe grapes and it just wasn't really helping. So I still have lemon, but just maybe once in the day. But also that's just something small. that
Oh, that's big. That's really big, and it's important for people to hear, especially nowadays, because I know we kind of talked about this before, but a lot of people are really, what's going on, man? A lot of people are really like super focused on detox, and thinking like eat less and eat loads of lemons and only grapes because of the grape cure. And and I've seen people damage their teeth or get to really thin places and not really do well. So I think that's important information to share because you have personal experience with both.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I've noticed like I've come off of it too, right? So I've regained my teeth and I've been noticed some good difference. I also noticed like I don't know if this is part of the teeth, but like having like carrots or sometimes vegetables and allowing myself to chew the food has made a big difference as well. I just feel like it strengthened my teeth too. I don't know if that's just a coincidence, but I've noticed.
Chewing crunchy stuff is definitely good for the teeth. Absolutely. I mean, if we just eat soft foods, and don't do anything, I mean, we're not challenging our teeth. We're not actually like pushing on them, I know that it actually impacts your jaw muscles as well as your facial construction and stuff like that, right? So it is pretty big. Absolutely.
Okay.
And here's your brother, another raw foodie.
So
Yeah, well,
my
we're doing an interview, so we want to say this is my brother.
hello.
And yeah, Robbie.
So my one thing I wish I knew when I was doing raw in the beginning was the importance of having overt fat sources, even if it's just like 10% of total calories, because I think it's really important for hormone production, especially if you're doing a lot of training. So I went 6 months while training for an ultra marathon with no overt fats. Yeah. And like I performed really well, but I think if I were to do it over again, definitely it doesn't have to be every day, but just like more regular, I think it would have helped my performance. And like obviously the other side is like, you want to do detox and stuff like that. That's like a different ballpark. But especially if you're like trying to be an athlete and trying to make gains, like I think just that avocado, that bit of seeds or whatever, nuts, whatever it is, I think super important for hormones and recovery and stuff like that. So
absolutely. And just so you can share your name, you've been into raw food for like 7 years and you're an ultra endurance athlete, right?
Yeah, so I've done ultra marathons. So I've been raw for 7 years. I've done 100-mile ultra marathons, Ironman, Ultraman. Yeah, so I've done some crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. The longest I've ever run is 5K. I'm not long distance, but I've also had many ankle and knee injuries and fractured my back and stuff. But I still skateboard and stuff, but running never was my thing. I remember even in high school, we had that fitness thing where you just had to run around for like 15 minutes, and it was like hell for me. That was like death. But
yeah.
But I totally agree with you. It kind of also piggybacks on kind of what we just talked about with like like hyper attention on detox, and the thought sometimes too that like fat slows down detox, or that if low fat is good, well then no fat must be better. And I've heard people say the same thing, and end up with either hair issues or even tooth issues, trying to be really long term on no fat. And I mean, it's possible you can get enough, but it's a finer line to walk, and it means that there's more chance of slipping off that line. And the benefits of adding, whether it's 7, 10, 15% from good quality overt fats, it speaks to itself. Whether it's like hair, skin, joint, brain conductivity, like all these things, nervous system, hormones. I totally 100% agree. I think all that's so important.
Yeah, I know.
Especially in the long term, right? Especially in the long term, like
definitely
days a week, a month, year, whatever. Do what you want. Like enjoy as long as you're enjoying and getting enough. But or not enough if you're on a fast or something, right? But like when we're talking long term and lifestyle rather than protocol, that's where those things are important. And I think a lot of people take protocol and try and make them a lifestyle, and that's where it can be a little bit tricky.
Yeah. I noticed really good improvement on my nails and my hair when I had a little bit more fat, like consistently. Like just they're so much whiter and stronger. And it's just such a nice treat to have, like, and the hair spins stronger and thicker. And I've noticed improvements with having a little bit more fat consistently has helped.
Yeah. I'm the same. What's your brother's name again?
Jason?
Jason, yeah. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah. He says thanks.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you for letting me weigh in.
Yeah, of course. No, pleasure for sure. Enjoy it there.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been so much fun. Where can people find you? Is there a place like can people find you online? Are you on social media, or do you have like anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, I have Instagram and YouTube. I can send my profile of like my performance and from my agency as well. I can show you.
Perfect. Yeah, if you give me that info, then I'll make sure that it's on the bottom of the screen and then also in the description so people can check that out.
hmm I mostly promote my performance wise, and so if you're like more curious on like what I do and stuff, it's on Instagram. I'm trying to keep my YouTube up to date, but it doesn't always happen. I just have a few random videos of my performances and stuff.
That's
Um,
cool. Please
we
do
can
share that.
definitely.
I'll check it out and subscribe and then also share it in the show notes.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. I guess also I wanted to say like on people for like advice for like raw foods and stuff. Besides like the lemon and stuff is like I think kind of just creating like a lifestyle is so important. Sometimes it can be exciting to get into the detoxing because it feels really good. With my experience with detoxing, just like study into it and know why you're doing it. And I think if you have more of a why you're doing it, it's just so much more powerful. And like, yeah, why are you doing this lifestyle? Like having your why. I think it's just so much beneficial. And to kind of make it like a long-term sustainable lifestyle rather than just a quick fix, because that can be easy. And you want your mental and your health to kind of continue down the line. Allow yourself to really enjoy the food and yeah, eat in abundance because it's important with training as well. So I think that's all I can say, and to like listen to yourself as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I could say on that as well.
That's awesome. Those are all super important points put together and concise, and I think it can help a lot of people. Absolutely. You know, this is such an amazing lifestyle and it can bring you so much, especially if you have that long-term mindset, some education and recognize abundance and not be afraid to experiment and have fun, right? And enjoy the things you enjoy and know that it
Yes,
can change at any moment. Like you said, like you can gain a little
yes,
bit, you can lose a little bit. It's not a big
mhm,
deal because you can change that in the next day, 2 month, you know, whatever, right? So
yes,
let's have
yes.
fun, enjoy it, relax.
Yes. Uh-huh. And I think there's so much you can learn from other people. Like once you've had like the knowledge, it's just like, okay, now learn the knowledge for yourself. Like allow the other people talking, let it go and be like, okay, experience the food for yourself
Yeah,
and learn for yourself rather than the other voices in your head too. Sometimes that can happen.
absolutely. And then talk, right? Like talk with other people who've been doing it and share experiences and share similarities. And, you know, it's funny because like, you know, as similar as we all are, we all have some differences, right? And some things that work amazing for you don't work amazing for this person. But the more you talk about it, the more you figure it out, the better you're going to fine tune for yourself. And you know, like for example, you mentioned working out on an empty stomach. I actually can't work out on anything. I only do good on an empty stomach, right? So like, there's little teeny things that are different for everyone, and that's just a physical thing, right? But like
Mhm.
you don't know unless you experiment. And, you know, while we all have more things in common, there can be little teeny differences, whether it's physically, socially, emotionally, or anything else, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
have fun with it.
Mhm.
Find your way.
Yes, could not agree more. Yes, could not agree
Awesome.
more. Well said.
Awesome. Well, it's been such a pleasure. Thanks so much, Desi, for coming on here and connecting with me and with everyone else here on the channel. And
Mhm.
I hope that everyone checks out your links. And I hope that I get to see you and your brother sometime in 3D and smash some food and enjoy in the gym. And who knows, maybe some performance one day. That'd be
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You're seriously more than welcome here. Like, let me know and we can go to the gym together and I can show you.
Sounds good. If you come up to Sweden, give me a high five. And otherwise, maybe we'll see each other online and maybe at an event sometime. I know you said you haven't been to a retreat or a festival yet. So hopefully you see one of those. There's a lot coming. So
I hope so too. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing everything with your channel. Like, yeah, thank you so much. It's so helpful. So thank you.
pleasure for sure. Pleasure for sure. Well, thank you again. And thanks everyone. If you're still here for staying tuned, I hope you enjoyed it a lot and you got a lot from it. Be sure to follow Desi on Instagram, check out her YouTube channel, and stay tuned for a lot more. Wishing you much. Peace, love, and seasonal fruit.
Thanks to Desi for this epic interview. Be sure to check her out for more.
Ooh, don't forget to check out my raw recipes playlist in the top left, the video just for you in the top right, subscribe for more videos in the bottom right, and get your 3 free ebooks in the bottom left. Grab your free raw recipe app available on iPhone and Android with over 100 free raw recipes, common fruit and vegetable calorie breakdown, frickin' raw, some food combining chart, shopping cart function, and so much more.